Carney furious as Alberta strikes. Deal with Donald Trump at G7 summit to leave Canada. The grand stage is set in Alberta, and what began as a routine G7 summit has quickly escalated into a geopolitical spectacle, with implications that could fundamentally redraw the map of North America. While the official G7 proceedings are slated to commence on Monday, an intriguing precursor unfolded on Sunday with a private meeting between the UK Prime Minister and Mark Carney, Canada's newly installed Prime Minister. The contents of their discussion remain undisclosed, but speculation abounds, perhaps involving trade options or, as some cynically suggest, a shared chuckle over the surprising turn of Canadian political events. However, the true bombshell is expected to detonate during the G7 summit itself. Danielle Smith, the resolute Premier of Alberta, is poised to engage in high-stakes bilateral meetings, or at least attempt to, with none other than President Donald Trump. This audacious move comes amidst soaring tensions between Canada and the United States, fueled by an ongoing trade war, escalating tariffs, and even the symbolic battle for the Stanley Cup. Simultaneously, within Canada, Alberta's separatist movement, embodied by the Prosperity Project, is gaining unprecedented momentum, with a referendum on separation slated for the end of the year. The question on everyone's mind: what exactly would happen if Alberta were to separate? This unprecedented scenario raises a multitude of complex questions. Would an independent Alberta remain a sovereign nation nestled between Canada and the USA, or would it inevitably be absorbed by its powerful southern neighbour? While there's no historical precedent for such a move, many believe the latter outcome is more likely, given the US's potential disinclination to have an independent state wedged between its borders. Premier Danielle Smith recently sat down with CBC to outline her ambitious objectives for the G7 summit, particularly her intended discussions with international leaders. Before delving into the details, I want to encourage all our viewers to hit the like button and subscribe to Canadian Express if you haven't already. Your support is crucial in helping our channel grow and continue to bring you these vital, unfolding stories. During her interview, Premier Smith addressed the ongoing national debate surrounding nation-building projects and the contentious Bill C-5. When asked about a province's right to reject proposed projects, particularly in light of Prime Minister Carney's recent emphasis on consensus building, Smith articulated a pragmatic approach. She expressed hope that legitimate provincial concerns would be identified and meticulously addressed. Her primary focus remains on the construction of a new bitumen pipeline to the northwest BC coast. Acknowledging past challenges, she stressed the absolute necessity of extensive Indigenous consultation and genuine equity ownership from the project's inception to ensure the selection of the most appropriate route. Furthermore, Smith highlighted the Pathways Group proposal from major oil sands companies, which aims to significantly decarbonize production, allowing for a lower carbon emission barrel to flow through the pipeline. The days of an engineer taking a ruler, putting it on a map, and drawing a line are over, Smith stated, emphasizing the need for negotiation and collaboration. The conversation then shifted to the persistent opposition from British Columbia regarding any new pipelines traversing their province. Premier Smith, undeterred, expressed confidence in her ability to persuade BC Premier Eby. Her argument hinges on the principle of Team Canada and the evolving geopolitical landscape. With the looming threat of Donald Trump's protectionist policies and the perceived unreliability of the US as a trading partner, Smith believes that all Canadians should be actively seeking projects that foster mutual support. She expressed hope that Premier Eby would adopt a similar approach to Manitoba's Premier Wab Kinew, who, despite holding a challenging political stance, has achieved high popularity ratings by supporting economic development, including the approval of a gold mine and openly including oil and gas pipelines as part of the economic corridor for Churchill. The discussion then touched upon the potential of the Port of Churchill route from Alberta, which appears to be gaining more consensus regardless of whether it would transport bitumen or LNG. Smith acknowledged its potential, but also stressed that Ottawa's vision extends beyond just pipelines. When pressed on other initiatives that would benefit Alberta if a pipeline agreement proves elusive, Smith reiterated the immense value of a bitumen pipeline, estimating a potential for 1 million barrels a day. Here's where the narrative truly escalates. Videos circulating online, as mentioned by the interviewer, suggest that if Alberta were to separate, its vast oil reserves, unconstrained by federal regulations and freed from equalization payments to other provinces, would instantly catapult it into the ranks of the world's wealthiest nations. The sheer scale of potential oil production, 1 million barrels a day, translates to an astonishing $20 billion annually in revenue at current market prices year after year. This substantial income could then be directed to eager international markets such as Japan, Korea, China, and India. The logistical hurdles of such a separation, however, are immense, requiring the creation of a physical border and significant infrastructure investment. Despite these challenges, the emotional resonance of the separatist movement is palpable, particularly given the long-standing frustration in Alberta over its oil revenues disproportionately benefiting other provinces, notably Quebec, which many Albertans feel offers little in return. Premier Smith continued to emphasise the strategic importance of both the northwest BC coast and the Port of Churchill for Alberta's energy exports. She argued that the Churchill route, with the addition of icebreakers, would allow access to East Coast refineries and the energy-starved European market, which is desperate to diversify its supply away from Iran and Russia. This would not only enhance European energy security, but also create opportunities for integrating Canada's transmission systems, allowing for the transfer of hydropower from Manitoba, nuclear energy from Saskatchewan, and connectivity with British Columbia, further decarbonising the power grid and enhancing interprovincial reliability. The concept of a grand bargain, a phrase being used by both Premier Smith and Minister Hodgson, was then explored. Smith defined it as a willingness to compromise on certain aspects, such as the original Northern Gateway project's termination point in Kitimat, acknowledging environmental concerns in the sensitive Douglas Channel. More crucially, the grand bargain would involve coupling massive investments in carbon capture, power decarbonisation, and direct air capture, estimated at 10 to 20 billion, with the increased revenue from expanded production. This synergistic approach, she argued, would make such substantial environmental investments far more palatable. A key point of contention is Bill C-69, a federal piece of legislation that many in Alberta view as a significant impediment to project development. While Minister Hodgson has indicated C-69 is here to stay, Premier Smith sees the federal government's proposed 2 years to yes timeframe for project approvals as an implicit acknowledgement that the current federal process is broken. She hopes that projects on this fast-track national list will create a parallel track for discussions on revising other bills to improve investor confidence. Smith firmly stated that federal government intervention to build projects that the private sector would otherwise undertake due to cumbersome processes would represent a failure of policy. Her objective is to create an investment climate that signals a resounding "Welcome back to Canada" to the investor community, reversing an estimated $500 billion in lost investment over the past decade, a loss she squarely attributes to liberal policies of high taxes and excessive red tape. Smith remained firm on the need for substantial revision of Bill C-69, particularly those aspects she deemed ideological rather than technical, which create confusion and lack clear measurables. She also pointed out that a significant portion of C-69 has already been struck down due to federal overreach into intra-provincial projects. While acknowledging the ambition of a 2 years to yes timeframe, she stressed the urgency of keeping pace with the US, which is rapidly streamlining its regulatory processes. Failure to do so, she warned, would result in Canada losing a critical window of investment. The discussions circled back to the G7 summit and Premier Smith's goals for engaging world leaders on energy security. As Alberta's Minister of International and Intergovernmental Affairs, she has already been actively advocating for Alberta's role as a solution provider on the global stage. Her travels to Japan and Korea, extensive time spent in the United States, and meetings with numerous ambassadors who have visited Alberta have all been dedicated to making the case that Alberta is ready and willing to help. Whether it's providing propane, Japan receives 15% of its supply from Canada, increasing bitumen exports to destinations like China and Korea via the Trans Mountain Pipeline, or supplying desperately needed LNG to Europe, Smith believes Alberta can be the answer. However, this necessitates a serious commitment to increasing production, a conversation she hopes to advance at the G7.